Hello everyone and welcome back to Enter the Ether, the podcast all about the upcoming third-person MOBA Ethereal Clash of Souls. I'm your host, the Mangoose. Joining me as always, at least for this show, is my friend and co-host, JellyKnees. How you doing, Jelly?
Yeah. This show, I get it. I'm good, Mangoose. Happy to be here. Happy to record ETE as always. How are you doing, sir?
Doing all right. We're going to be talking this week about some of the stuff that's on their roadmap. Specifically, we're going to talk about the UI, like they were talking about updating the UI, jungle camps, and what we want to see on the minimap. So let's get into that. Let's start off with the UI. Jelly, what do you think needs to change with the UI for Ethereal?
So I think the biggest thing is it needs to be more modernized, right? We've had 2 iterations of the UI so far. The first version was very PS1, right? And which, there was a time and place for that kind of UI, no problem. The new one is definitely much closer to like modern standards. It's a lot more minimal. It has a lot of information, but still not taking up too much screen real estate. But we're still in those like PS3, PS4 days of UI. And now we're trying to update it to that PS5 level where it's right now everything's going minimal. Everything's like if you can have one dial on your screen, you have one dial on your screen and that is it.
Right.
And so it's updating it, I think, to those aesthetics is finding even more ways to minimize the amount of space taken on screen while still conveying the information to people.
I think the end state goal should be a customizable UI. Because I think that's probably just
100%.
Best for everybody.
100%. Smite, for all of Smite's failings, their UI customization is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in a video game.
Man, I haven't really messed with it. I'm going to have to boot Smite up and...
It's literally, it has every option. It's got opacity sliders. It's also got, you can drag and drop it into different places of your screen. Like it's just for customizable. That's the way to go. 100%.
Oh, that's nice. That is really nice.
Oh yeah. I've seen Smite players take their minimap, do full opacity. So all you can see is the tower health bars, the Phoenixes and the Titan, and they drop it center of their screen. And so you can see straight through it, and you have the important information of the health bars of each of those things and minions.
Yeah.
But they center their screen, and it's like, I don't know how you play that way, but I admire the fact that you can do it.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, like Windu has that eye tracking software on his streams, so you could tell where his eyes are going, and you see him flick up to the mini map or flick over here. And it would just be nice to have it all dead center. I've talked about this before. In World of Warcraft, you could download a bunch of mods to customize your UI, and I had everything in the dead center of my screen. Everything that was pertinent to a fight was dead center around my character, with the opacity down a little bit, and that was amazing for me. That's how I was able to operate at. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I was a pretty high level road. Like I was a high level raider. Like we were getting like top 5s and top 10 clears and stuff like that. So
there you go.
And it was mainly for me, it was because of that UI that I was able to dish out as much damage as I was, because I was able to track everything. And that would be nice for, I think it would be nice for me for Ethereal as well. Like having timers just right next to my hero, or having like knowing exactly when one of my abilities comes off cooldown, having it pop up center screen so I don't have to look down at all.
Yeah, and we saw a little bit of that with like Overprime and Revenant, where his bullet count was on the crosshair itself, that as you're shooting, it actually gave you a UI indicator of how many bullets you had left.
Yeah.
That's a really cool little detail that goes a long way in terms of information that is center screen, but doesn't take up, it's not something that's distracting you in and of itself.
Right.
And so I think it's, yeah, like I said, it's modernizing and bringing it all up to that kind of state where it is okay. Smite's UI has been the same for a long time in terms of design, not in terms of customization. In terms of design, it's been the same way almost since their release, as far as I know, and it shows its age. Even if you look at a game like League of Legends UI shows its age a little bit, and they've updated that 2 or 3 times.
I mean, Smite's kind of locked themselves into Unreal Engine 3, and there's been so many advancements to the engine, like they're going to have to update eventually. I don't know.
Or come out with Smite 2 and pull a Dota and redo things from years past, essentially.
We're going to go a little off topic here, but somebody brought something up that I never thought of, because we talked about having like bringing in like doing like cross promotions with other games, like kind of like Smite does with, like, they have the Ruby skins and they have the Ninja Turtle skins. Something I never even thought of is somebody was talking about how the Ninja Turtle skins suck because it's really hard to tell who you're targeting because they all look like fucking Ninja Turtles. And it's hard to like pick out, like if you're trying to target the DPS, it's like, well, fuck, this is DPS, he's got the blue you know that brings, that's a really good thing that I never thought of. Like you kind of got to be careful with how you do your skins like that. Make sure they don't all look the exact same.
And something we talked about, I would say talked about is very, very, very loose. More like joked at internally. Is there's a character that we have coming up that I'm not going to give too many details on, but that character could be in Dead by Daylight, no question.
Oh yeah.
And so we were like, if we could partner with them and like do skins, that'd be super cool.
Well, they partner with that absolutely everybody, it seems. Dead by Daylight does.
Seriously. Yeah. If you work at Behavior, just hit us up. We'd be happy to partner with you.
I was watching a maiden of mine play it the other day. She's the voice actress for Malaya. I was watching her play Dead by Daylight, and I was saying, oh man, it'd be so cool if there was a Cenobite skin. Somebody's like, they got Pinhead. What more do you want? I'm like, holy shit, I didn't know that.
And Pinhead has a Cenobite skin, actually. So,
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Dead by Daylight. I haven't really played that much, but they're kind of knocking it out of the park with
they do just as well as Smite does in some of those things where you're just like, how did you get the rights to that?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they do a really good job. And so it's definitely something to consider though with the Ninja Turtles, is if you're going to do Ninja Turtles or something that's very similar across multiple skin lines, you have to find differentiation between them.
Yeah. I don't know. That's funny though. But getting back to the UI, sorry, I got us off on a tangent as usual. Yeah, the main thing I just really want to see right off, like right now, is the shift next, like the word shift next to your class ability, so everybody knows that shift activates your class ability.
And I think that's one of those things that has been oversight up till now, because every other ability has the little icon or the text for it. So I think that one was just oversight purely. And so that is actually one I've already made sure that is in the new UI, is making sure the word shift is there. But it's so far, it's still in relatively early stages for that new UI, but so far it is definitely an improvement over the current one. And a lot of things, like instead of having so the current tab, when you press tab, it pulls up a scoreboard of all the 6 myths on both teams, right? And gives you the information for those. That's great. But we can go a step further, especially with the way our map is set up. And we've been talking about when you press tab, having the mini map in full show up instead of pressing M instead. And then shifting some of that layout of where the scoreboard assets are, of where the myths and all that placement is. So that when you just press a button that you're used to pressing already in tab, you can then get that quick information up, and things like jungle, the buff timers being important, or the having wyvern timers up there as well. Something to help give you that more information without adding another key to press in order to get that information. Yeah. So it's trying to consolidate all of that kind of stuff.
Well, while we're on the subject already, let's talk about the mini map and how it can be updated. I think that there has to be a way, and I don't know how you would do it. There has to be a way to have the entire mini map on screen always. I don't know how you're going to pull it off though, because the map is pretty big.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things of having it in that tab menu is helpful for one thing. It just provides a little bit of that easy press instead of pressing M. Because as of the last test, and I think the one before that, if you pressed M, it opened the mini map in full, and you could see everything all at once. That will be what the tab menu does now. And I think for the mini map itself, it's probably just going to be a toggle option in the settings where you say, I'm willing to forego some screen space for the full mini map.
Yeah.
Versus having the singular one that you switch between and then using tab instead. I think it's just, I don't think there's a better way to do it that way that conveys the same amount of information. Because you can do something we've talked about is doing like smaller icons for like if you're looking at Void Lane as your mini map, then you have a fire icon and ice icon next to it, and then it shows the myths that are currently visible in those lanes via allied and enemy.
Right.
So then you can still get information without seeing the map directly. But even then, that still takes up a lot of space. And if you're going to show that information, you may as well just show the mini map at the same time. So it's one of those double-edged sword things.
Yeah. Looking back at some older Paragon footage, their minimap was kind of huge.
Their mini map was massive. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a big guy, and like people didn't really mind that, so I don't think they would mind so much in Ethereal having a big honking mini map up there in the right hand corner of their screen.
So yeah, and it's finding that balance, and especially if we have customization options in there, letting players choose for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. You can have that be on new player onboarding. You can have the 3 versions of the minimap and say, which would you prefer? A single lane, but you can swap between them, all 3 lanes, or some third option. I don't know. Similar to you do with people with like keybinds that you see in when you play anything, really. It says, what keybinds do you know? 1, 2, 3, 4, QWER, WASD, all that kind of stuff.
The other thing with the single lane map too, and having to scroll to cycle through the different lanes, that's one of those things that was a lot like Marina's self-shielding for me. Like at first, absolutely hated it, that I had to hit Alt E to shield myself. But after like 3 or 4 games of Marina, like it just became natural and I just didn't notice anymore. And it's kind of the same way with the minimap. Like the first time you see it, that is only one lane and that you have to scroll to look at the other lanes, you're like, what the hell is this? And it kind of pisses you off. But after you get used to it, it's really not that bad. I would still prefer to have the whole map, but yeah.
Because if you know where you want to look, right? So if you know where you want to look, if you're trying to look at Fire Lane and you're currently looking at Void, you know, you just, okay, if I scroll up all the way, I will hit Fire Lane. And then I can, once I do that, I can then reference the mini map and look at what I wanted to look at. Okay. And go on with my day or whatever it may be. And yeah, it kind of, I mean, it's a lot of things we've talked about with Ethereal that it's overwhelming at first, but then it's not actually as overwhelming as it seems. But giving the options is always nice at the same time.
Yeah.
When the option is available.
And I mean, it also is important to get people into still like to playing the game and then sticking with the game is to have that ease of access from off the start.
Yeah.
Because like,
I mean, there's another game that I play, Hunt Showdown. It's an FPS that when they first went into early access, they had a completely different control scheme from every FPS I've ever played. And it threw me off so bad. But then I finally played enough that I learned it and all those things. And now I almost actually prefer their control scheme over a regular FPS control scheme. And so it's hard in its own way to force it on people and say like, we believe this is better, but you're still different from the mold at the same time. So it's hard to juggle that balance as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a hurdle to jump for sure. It's kind of like telling somebody, oh no, you will really enjoy this show. You just need to get past like the first 20 minutes of the first episode, and then it really takes off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to watch that show. Like
You
maybe
just
some
gotta
of them
watch 4
they
seasons
really
of Supernatural before it gets good, and then the next 20 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to be like that. But I don't think Ethereal's quite at that point. But yeah, anything you could do to ease people into it, I think would be better.
Yeah. And what Mangoose to you is like super pertinent information to have on the minimap itself? Of course, where myths are is huge.
Yeah.
Because having that information. But what else do you think is big information for that?
Right now, you can't really tell what myth you're looking at whenever you look at the minimap. That needs to be somehow clearer. I don't know how. But that's probably the big thing right now for the minimap for me, because I don't know who is where. I just know that there's enemies there. I don't know which enemies. You know?
Yeah.
I think that's probably the big thing.
I think having each individual tower on the minimap and its health would be huge as well to reference that I can look at Void Lane and see what the T1 is at instead of not being... Right now, I think they're just dots. When you have vision of it, it's just a dot that sits there.
So camp timers too.
Oh yeah, camp timers. I can't wait for that because that'll be how junglers really start optimizing those jungle routes. Is when they have a visualization of camp timers and they can make those choices very quickly. I think it'll be really cool to
Yeah.
see some of the optimizations they make.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot of times I've been jungling when I'm like, I don't know if the chonker's up, but I see a pretty easy gank. Like, which one do I do?
Yeah.
And like, if I knew the chonker was up, then I would probably go take that real quick and then try and
Safer.
do the
Yep.
gank, you know. But yeah, it's going to open up a lot of possibilities, and I would love to see that on the minimap. Some sort of indication, kind of like Fault does, where you have like a circle that slowly fills up, or what have you. I think that works pretty well. Something like that.
Definitely plenty of options there as well to implement some kind of camp timer feature.
Well, speaking of jungle camps, let's get into that one. Let's talk about
Yeah.
what we want to see from the jungle camps, because from what I understood from the beginning, you guys were going for like a Dark Souls feel with the jungle camps, which means like stuff that you can dodge, and like it's very skill based whenever you clear a camp. You don't really see that now. It's just they all come at you and
Yeah,
and
kind
hit
of you
you.
just get your standard jungle camp feeling.
Yeah, which I think you need at some to a point. Like, you should always take a little bit of damage when clearing the jungle, but if you're a better jungler than somebody else, then you just take less damage. But I think that that damage always needs to be there. I don't think it should be completely Dark Souls where you can 100% nullify all the damage if you're good enough.
I agree. And little tip for you junglers out there, if you haven't learned this yet for 3D MOBAs, one thing that you can do in 3D MOBAs, but in Ethereal especially, is the skill cap of taking a jungle camp can be you kiting the other two minions around one that you're running around, and while they are continuously running in circles, you're running around it, damaging the first minion, and you just continue that. And I think that's a healthy part of it. Like you said, the skill difference of taking less damage because you're kiting these camps around. It's definitely more work, but
Yeah.
but it is something that can be done. And I think for me, what I'd love to see, and this is something that I haven't been a part of conversations for internally, but so what I would love to see with these jungle camps is they each have the one ability that is randomly used. It's not consistent, so you can't just like, oh, okay, and step to the side because they're using the ability. All right, whatever. Right? Make it semi-random, but yeah, that they like charge up some stronger attack, or they buff their minions beside them, or something along those lines that you can see just to, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, ease the monotony of taking jungle camps, because it becomes a basic attack fest for 30 seconds. So let me basic attack this for 30 seconds. Okay, on to the next one where I basic attack for 30 seconds. Right? So something to break that up, I think, is huge.
And it's always good to have something in a game that separates good players from decent players, you know? Giving people that option to perfect the clearing of the jungle camp. One idea I had for it was, I don't know if you've ever played Terra, the MMO.
Very briefly, but yeah.
If you remember the enemies there, they all had special attacks, but they would just normal attack, and then their eye would light up like red. And that meant that something big was incoming. It was time to dodge. Something like that, I think, would be kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, like with the skifter camps, like not all of them would do it at the same time, so you'd probably get hit by at least one of those. But if you're really good at noticing when that flash is and which way the camp is facing, you could get out of it and clear that shit without taking as much damage.
Yeah, and I think there's so much potential with that kind of stuff in Ethereal, especially, but just in general in MOBAs that you can do. You can add these special things to make it more of an experience to fight these camps rather than, like I said, just a basic attack fest.
Yeah, I think Atropos already has a lot of what I would like to see, where there's stuff that spawns all around him, so you got to watch your feet and like get out of the fire before it burns you. And then he's got the big laser that it's obvious where it's coming, but you want to be able to deal as much damage as possible without taking damage. So maybe sometimes it's best to just like, you know, jump through the laser real quick, but you know, certainly don't just stand in it. I think Atropos has done really well. I would like to see more damage coming out of him, but also more indicators, like a bunch of indicators pop up on the ground. It's like, oh shit, time to move.
Yep.
And then they all erupt at the same time or something.
And I think the thing with Atropos especially is he hasn't become those aspects, the different explosions, the laser or anything like that, haven't become to the point where it's almost like a mini game, right? It doesn't feel so crazy that you're like, okay, I need to dodge, step left twice, step forward once, step right 3 times, right, in order to dodge these things. It's because it kind of becomes second nature that you can subconsciously navigate around these things, but they are still important,
Hmm.
which I think is a decent balance to strike, because you don't want it to become that you have to watch every single step you make, because it just pulls the fun out of the experience.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe make his third phase a fucking straight up bullet hell. Like,
Oh God.
like
It
he's
turns
just
into top
firing.
down and congratulations. You're now playing Ethereal
You gotta
platform.
find your route through.
I love it. A big fan.
There's stuff exploding and.
I mean, I sent you that bug image the other day of top down Ethereal.
Yeah. I would like to see him be more like an MMO, like a World of Warcraft boss, where there are some like strange abilities and stuff. Because like one of the things you had to deal with a lot of times in World of Warcraft was somebody would get selected with some sort of ability that would damage everybody around them. So then you had to get the hell away from them, and they had to get the hell away from everybody. That makes for some interesting decisions right there. Because sometimes, what if it's the person that's taking a Tropos? Then all the melees are kind of screwed.
And I think when all 3 phases of Atropos are implemented, we're going to see a shift of some of those abilities, and some new ones, of course, added as well, to give more of that variety between phases, but also make the 3rd phase feel like the boss that it is.
Yeah.
It's not first phase Atropos, just in a bigger, new, improved form. That's not what it is. It's meant to be bigger, badder, and hit harder.
I would like to see more stuff out of the Elders too. I think there is a lot that comes out of the Elders. We just don't notice because there's usually a clusterfuck of minions and everything
Yeah.
around. You know what I mean?
Even the other day, it's been months now since we found this, but there was an attack that the Elder was doing that we didn't know they were doing because the percentage was just so low.
Oh,
And
really?
so in looking at the Elders, we looked at them, we're like, where did this come from? Huh? And then found it, and it's this like crazy thing, and it's really cool to have some of those extra abilities that we didn't know were just low percentage on there that we tossed in for that. I think it was available in the last test.
Yeah.
They're still rare, but they're not as rare as they were before.
Well, I know he does like a frontal cone AoE smash on the ground, and every once in a while he like ground pounds.
He also has like aerial bombardment strikes that rain down around, that are completely random in where they hit, but when they hit, they hit.
So I haven't even noticed that.
Lights the ground on fire. He's got one where he spawns a fireball underneath somebody. I'm sure there's more that I'm not remembering. He's got a straight up just punch or a slash, I think, is with his swords. But yeah, there's a ton of them.
Huh.
And I think that's, as the game gets more and more towards a finalized state, we can add in more of those variations to keep the encounter different each time, or have it be more unique.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool. That would be cool. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see some knockbacks from him and Atropos both. And
I don't know, the knockbacks on the wyverns are kind of nutty, so those things.
That's my favorite part of the wyverns is the knockback, even though sometimes it doesn't hit you if you're close enough to their model. But
And then if you're just in the sweet spot, it'll launch you across the lane, no problem. That's where you get hit by, and you're like, oh well, I guess I'm not fighting wyvern anymore. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
I'm out of here.
I definitely want to see the wyverns become more dangerous. That's for sure. Because right now they're pretty cake for one person to take.
Yeah. Yeah. The worst part about them is the knockback.
Yeah. I don't know how you would fix that, because right now you can just kite them. You just get behind them and they can never hit you. You just keep running around in circles.
An AI thing that we have to make the AI perform better, perform smarter. And there's the potential that we maybe add some kind of, if you get behind them, they jump in the air and slam down, knock you back to give themselves enough time to turn.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. Right? There's dozens of things that we could do with that kind of stuff.
Just a quick donkey kick.
And you're dead. Okay, we're good.
That knocks back. Do everything they do knocks back.
Oh, good. Yeah, just what we want.
and and put pits of certain death and lava all around them.
I'm just gonna put little perfect holes in both wyvern caves that if they knock you back just right, you can get knocked out the hole and fall to Voidland and die.
Hole in one.
I mean, that's a strat you technically could do now because the dragon or the wyvern statues at the back of the pit are breakable.
Mhm.
You have a Ron stand there, break one of them, and then wait for the enemy to come in toward him, and then just hopefully get knocked
Hopefully
out.
it knocks them all out.
The wyvern.
Oh, that would be funny. I think it'd be more likely he would just grab one of them and toss them out of the
That works
out of
too,
the cave,
you know.
but oh shit. Well, I think that's about all I had to talk about for this week, unless you had anything else, Jelly.
I think that's everything. I mean, there's lots of changes coming, and that's the cool thing. And I realize we're in kind of like a lull a little bit for the non-Patreon members of the community, but stuff's we're in the works. It's all coming out as quickly as possible, so we're excited to keep going.
Right on. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, that's going to close it out for this week, though. Jelly, you got anything to plug?
I think just my Twitch, twitch.tv/JellyKnees. Marvelous Mondays at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. I think that's it. What about you, Mangoose?
I missed it again last week, and you played Dream Daddy, too.
I did play Dream Daddy. I went on a date in Dream Daddy too. That's the crazy
so
part.
Sad. So
Yeah,
sad.
you should be sad. You should be.
All right. Well, that's going to close it out for this week, folks. Let us know what your thoughts are on the jungle camps. What do you want to see from the minimap? What do you want to see from the UI so you can improve Elysium? So as we all enter the ether, kind of, I started that one and it was like starting to flow. Like
Yeah.
I almost had that.
Almost.
Almost had that. Fuck. Goodbye, food. Goodbye, food.